Design+Diversity Fellow, Maya! Round of applause.
Hello, everybody. My name's Maya Bird Murphy. I am from Chicago. I grew up in Oak Park. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what I've been doing for the last 2 years. So I like to break my experience up into different sections. I start with exposure. So what these are, they're Froebel blocks, which were designed by Frank Lloyd Wright, who was a really famous architect around this area. Like I said, I grew up in Oak Park, Illinois, which is the first suburb west, and it's filled with Frank Lloyd Wright buildings. So I was constantly seeing architecture in my daily life. My dad worked downtown, so I could take the train and go up into his skyscraper. And, you know, I was constantly seeing architecture in my life. So I like to say that I acquired architecture. The next section is discovery. And I started, when I was growing up, I started looking at my surroundings and really noticing the injustices that happen specifically in the built environment. So these are some examples. So there were housing blocks like Cabrini Green. There's environmental injustice when you live by a factory or by a highway and you're having a lot more pollution. And then there are lots of examples of places that, you know, houses are being knocked down and they're blighted communities, and just huge areas of land that used to have housing on them. Oops. So then I decided to go to architecture school. I went to Ball State University in Muncie, Indiana, which was a very interesting experience for me because I came from this really diverse place. Oak Park is really diverse. I was constantly surrounded by people who looked like me. And then I went to Muncie, Indiana, which Ball State is very, very white and very Christian. So it was just like there was one type of person, but then like 20,000 of them. And so it was very interesting. And then I was literally the one African American of 80 kids in my architecture class to graduate, which was pretty crazy. So then practice. So I spent 4 years in Muncie, Indiana in this really uncomfortable situation. I actually did summer classes so that I could graduate early. So I graduated in 3.5 years so that I could come home. And I was ready to start working in architecture, and I was like, finally, I'm home, I'm coming back to Chicago where there are more than one type of person. And then, I started working in the field and realized wasn't gonna be much different than what I had just come from. And so these are the stats. It's 85% of architects are white, 64% are male, and that leaves 0.3% of African American women in architecture. I think there are less than 500 in all. So I started grad school, and I did this for a few reasons. You need to have a master's in architecture to become licensed. And I also did it kind of as an escape from my work, because I really wanted to start thinking about all of these issues that were in the built environment, but we didn't really talk about those issues in school. So I made sure that I could go to a school that would support this research that I wanted to start doing. So I went to Boston Architectural College, and this is some parts of my thesis that I created, and I'll talk more about this in a little bit. These were the questions that I asked through my thesis. How do we make existing space more equitable, and how can we diversify the design fields? And can that happen simultaneously? So I've worked at a few firms here that are really, really great, and they're great in a lot of different ways, but I always felt that something was missing and that this was not really what I didn't want to be working full-time in a firm my whole life. So then I asked myself this question, which is, how do I bring more meaning and control into my practice? And that's where Chicago Mobile Makers comes in. So I was finishing my thesis and working full-time at a firm in River North. And I was also trying to incorporate Chicago Mobile Makers all at the same time. So that was a crazy time. But I incorporated in September 2017 and then graduated in December after that. But I had this really great thesis professor who just pushed me to make this like a real business. Like, he was the one who was telling me, like, you need to incorporate this before you graduate. Like, this will set you up so that you're ready to go once you're done. And so that really helped me. So what we do is we go around Chicago and give workshops. And these are mostly problem solving and design thinking workshops. So they're not specifically about architecture all the time, but they're trying to just give students the skills they need to be in any design field, or just, problem solving can help you in any part of life. So we do a lot of mapping and talking about Chicago in general. So this is a program that I literally finished yesterday. It was a 2-week summer camp at Marwin Arts, which is a very cool organization here. I just wanted to show you this as an example of what a typical workshop looks like. So it's 10 sessions. They're each 2.5 hours. And so first we start with collaging. So we're talking a lot about healthy communities, and so I asked them the question, what does a healthy community look like? And they answered through collage. This is them working on their collages. And then I always like to take students outside, and especially high schoolers, you don't know if people actually look at the world when they're walking around usually. So I asked them to listen, what does it sound like here? How do you feel here? Are you comfortable? Is this somewhere you would like to hang out? And they start thinking about the spaces that they occupy in a different way. So what they're doing in this project is it's building upon itself the whole 2 weeks, and they get to design their positive neighborhood change in this lot. This is the lot that we chose. So they can really do anything, but they're gathering all of this information so that they can propose something that would actually be a great thing to add to the community. So then we get really into the mapping. So we look at land use and how the different parcels of land are being used, and it shows us what isn't in the community and what should be in the community and what the community needs. And they figure all of this out through their analysis. And then we get into floor plan. So this one is more about architecture. So we actually teach the students how to make a site plan and a floor plan and draw to scale. And then they actually build little models of their designs. And we just did this on Thursday. We had a final presentation. I always like the students to present their work because that's really important as well. It's for them to be able to tell us what they did. This is our final presentations. And Amanda Williams is an architect and artist here who's kind of Chicago famous. And she actually reached out to me and attended these final presentations and gave the kids a really cool critique, which is a really awesome opportunity for them. She's another TED talker. So these are some of our achievements. Been open for 2 years, almost. It'll be 2 years in September. And we were this Fast Company mention. Antoinette had the full page spread, and we were listed in this long, long list of people, but we were there. This is what we are trying to do. I did this as my thesis, and this is kind of the crazy part of what I'm trying to do right now. But we're trying to build a mobile makerspace inside of a van. So this will be learning space, presenting space, supply space, and working space, all in this van. So we're hoping to have, a laser cutter, 3D printer, hand tools, power tools, anything you need to complete a project. And it's a scalable model, so maybe we have one truck, and then maybe we have a fleet of trucks, and then hopefully we'll also have a permanent space where we can hold workshops there. And I should say that the whole point of the mobile in our name and having a truck is that we're taking down barriers. We go to the student, and they don't need to find a way to us. Like, Chicago's a really huge place. You might need to use the CTA bus to get somewhere, and then get on a train after that, and then walk somewhere. And that costs money as well. So we hope to always bring workshops to the student. So we actually bought this truck recently, which is, it's crazy. Who knew that this was going to be the first vehicle that I would own? But it is. So this is actually just parked in Humboldt Park, not too far from here. We haven't done too much with it yet, but we're hoping, actually fundraising right now, to get this whole build out done. And so we have a contractor that has signed on to do the build, so it's moving forward. And we happen to be fundraising right now, and this is actually our last day of the fundraiser on Indiegogo. So if you feel like it, you can go click that link. But this is a rendering of what the truck will look like once we wrap it. And I always like to end my talks with this, which is, this world will not be equal until it is built by and for all. Thank you.